Hey everybody, Jim Gonzalez here, EDI Support LLC. So it's another beautiful Wednesday here in Pennsylvania. It's sunny and warm and humidity is striking. So what we're going to be talking about today is we're going to talk about, EDI for 3PLs and logistic companies. They're having to manage complex fulfillment requirements. If you look at the things that 3PLs are needing to do anymore, it's a lot of, EDI is required. There's a lot of track and tracing abilities that 3PLs have to get involved with. When we're talking about a 3PL, it's a third-party logistics. So it's typically an outsourced warehouse. You're looking at companies that are, storing goods for a particular entity. They're shipping goods. Some people have different, feelings on what a 3PL is, what a 4PL is, all of those things. So just really think of it as an entity that's storing your goods that is then taking those goods and shipping it to a destination. So sometimes they're getting those goods directly from the manufacturer, and then they're storing it at the warehouse. Sometimes they're coming from their actual clients, because the client, it happens to be the manufacturer of the good, all of those things. So when we're looking at, the difficulties that they're having to deal with, in the world of logistics, speed, accuracy, and compliance, they're not optional for these entities. They're expected. So they're looking for those things to be handled. So the different, 3PLs are managing multiple brands, working with different retailers. They're meeting each one's unique EDI and labeling requirements, where things can get a little bit messy pretty quick. There's mistakes in EDI that can cause shipment delays, chargebacks, and even at the worst case scenario, people losing partnerships or losing accounts, which doesn't bode well for a lot of entities. So there's a rise in the retail compliance programs. It means tighter expectations for things like on-time ASNs and barcodes for the labels that are put onto the packaging. If they're packaging goods and they're literally having to put in a packing slip, something that represents the actual retailer, even though it's coming from a different entity. So, and a lot of people don't understand that. And in the outside of the EDI realm and outside of logistics and shipping and all of those things, that some of the goods that we receive that come from, I'm just going to throw the name out there, Costco.com or Amazon.com, those are not products and goods that are made and manufactured all the time at Amazon or at Costco or whatever that looks like. So those different entities are getting them from a third party, and that third party is actually the supplier sending the goods to a 3PL, or the 3PL is receiving them from a manufacturer, and they're handling the goods that way. So think of that in the process. Along with that, they're having to put labels on these said cartons that are shipped out, or pallets, or whatever the type of goods are. So why fulfillment related EDI challenges are increasing, and what are common EDI pain points for the 3PLs? They're typically having to deal with, major retailers, Walmart, Target, Amazon, Costco, Chewy.com, like all these different things. And those companies have tightened their routing guides and the EDI requirements and the things that they're looking to have handled, because shipping goods can have a cost, can have an effect, can function and affect their means of margins. How are they making a profit? How are they doing those type of things? So you have to realize this is all part of it. So if that 3PL misses an ASN window, or sends the wrong label, or mismatches item quantities, or they're going to end up seeing their supplier, ultimately the client, getting hit with chargebacks or rejected shipments. So, is the 3PL responsible for those chargebacks? Are they responsible for those rejected shipments? who's ultimately responsible? So there's some definitions that need to be done there if you're thinking about it from a supplier avenue or vendor or however you want to define them. Retailers are starting to track those fill rates, the on-time deliveries, the EDI accuracies. Those are all a part of a scorecard. So as that data and as the analytics becomes more and more involved, 3PLs get more and more involved. And 3PLs are no longer able to just take a phone call, a fax, an email to say that orders need to ship. They need to put in and think about those electronic means of handling it. So EDI, not only a requirement of the retailer, but they're also a requirement for 3PLs if they want to deal with larger customers, larger suppliers. You know, their 3PLs are also handling a lot more frequent shipping because there's smaller orders. They're dealing with direct to customer, or otherwise known as drop shipping. So what type of 3PLs? There's various different types of 3PLs that are out there. Some 3PLs only do drop shipping. Some are focused on full pallets. Some are focused on full trucks. Some of them combine and do both. Some of them do consolidated shipping, where maybe Walmart wants a full truck coming into them. So this warehouse might be a consolidator, or a 3PL might be a 3PL consolidation warehouse, where they take all these different orders, combine it to make one truck to go to Walmart's location or Costco's location or Amazon's location or whatever that looks like. So you have to start, again, understanding what these 3PLs are being asked, what they're looking to do, all of those things. Because each order still needs full EDI compliance, ASNs, labels, invoices, even if it's just for one single unit of product. So as weird as it is, you get that t-shirt that you bought off of Amazon and it's fulfilled by Amazon. Amazon's going to still put a label on it. Maybe it's a FedEx or a UPS label, but there's going to be labeling requirements on it. There's going to most likely be a packing slip or some type of indicator inside of the box as to what you bought. Maybe it's a return label. Who knows? So think of those things. You know, a single 3PL may work with dozens of brands, each with different EDI specs. Documents can vary. Maybe they're looking for help with integrations to, you know, the back-end ERPs, WMS integrations, labeling formats. So ultimately, that 3PL becomes an extension of their customer because that's how they're looked at. Some trading partners or retailers will allow a 3PL to send the ASNs to them directly. It doesn't have to go back to the customer and then through the customer system to the actual retailer. They'll allow them to be that external entity of their customer. Some 3PLs have worked that out quite well. Others have not. You know, because most 3PLs use their own separate systems for EDI, warehouse operation, shipping, and labeling. Managing this complexity without automation and integration becomes a nightmare. If your EDI system doesn't talk to your WMS or ERP, you're operating blind. You shouldn't need somebody to interact in between those two entities. It should be as seamless of an integration as you can set up between a 3PL and you as the client or vendor, supplier, whatever, and you throw in the retailer on it. EDI has a big effect on all of that, whether you're dealing with CSV files, XML, JSON, X12, Edifact, doesn't really matter what it is. You need to understand that in order to operate and to move and progress in the day that we live in and the time that we live in, a lot of it has to be handled through EDI. You know, the lack of synchronization means delays in confirming shipments, you know, the 945s or missed pickups, inaccurate shipment confirmations. If you're still needing oversight by a human to test, map, and approve each trading partner, that in of itself adds a little bit more of a wrinkle. So understand what all is going on and what all you need to take care of when it comes to a 3PL. You know, and again, it just leads to why EDI is mission critical for 3PLs. It directly affects the ability to fulfill, ship, and invoice orders accurately, on time, and in compliance of their clients' trading partners, which are typically large retailers or manufacturers. So an EDI enables that real-time communication, between a 3PL, its clients, and their trading partners. It lets you track order status, shipment progress, and inventory levels at any moment, which is critical in today's just-in-time world. And it's critical in the world that we're leading into, which is more track and trace by government entities saying we have to be in compliance of those things. If you're outside of those compliance, not only are you affecting your retailer, you are affecting how they're viewed and how they're looked at by government entities, because these are protocols and security measures that are being put in place. Whether you're in the drug industry or you're in dealing with the food industry, those are things that are evolving. And guess what? It's gonna hit the overall market because everybody wants to know where their goods are, where they came from, how soon they should be at a house or at a particular store or whatever that looks like. They want to know it. Most 3PL contracts with large brands or retailers require EDI capability. Being EDI compliant is no longer nice to have. If you want to be a 3PL, you better have EDI capabilities. It's a baseline. It's an expectation. That's how you can get into the market as a 3PL. We help 3PLs. We have some clients that are shipping a lot of goods, moving products all throughout the United States. Some are moving them throughout the world. And guess what? We understand the requirements. We understand how you have essentially three parties involved. You have the retailer where the good is getting to, you have the client on the back end, and you have the 3PL that 3PL is actually our client. So we're helping them work with all these businesses and integrate the ERPs, the WMSs, get all the data flowing and make sure it's marked for the right entities. It's a lot of work, but we're helping them to be successful. So you have to find clients, or you have to find companies, I should say, not clients. You should have to find companies that can also help you from an EDI consulting and support standpoint of, hey, we've been there, done that. We're doing it now. How can we help you? What can we help you with? How can we help you understand these things? Because EDI reduces the manual entry and the human errors. It automates key touch points like PO intake, shipment instructions, inventory updates, and invoice creation. Without it, staff would be manually keying in hundreds of line items, tracking codes, and dates. It's just a recipe for costly mistakes. The single keystroke error can trigger an incorrect shipment or a misaligned ASN, leading to rework, delays, or fines. And the retailer's compliance depends on EDI accuracy. Most retailers have strict EDI requirements, routing guides that include, the precise ASN formatting, specific label placement, and barcode standards, timely document delivery, often hours before delivery. They'll typically want an ASN to get to them 24 to 48 hours before a product gets to them, because the retailers on their end need to understand how to have it staffed to receive those goods, especially if it's a full truck. So think of the moving parts and think of the things that are going on in the back end when you're, as an EDI entity in the 3PL space. Your failure to meet these standards results in chargebacks, compliance fines, shipments that are refused, whole trucks that might be refused. You're damaging your brand and the relationship and possibly losing customers. There's key documents that most matter to 3PLs. Those key documents, you run across them in some type of variation. What I'm going to talk about here is I'm going to talk about, in the X12 world. So you have your 940s, which are shipment orders. It tells the 3PL what to ship. You have a 945, which is a shipping confirmation. That tells the brand what was shipped. So it tells the client, the 3PL's client. 856 ASN tells the retailer what's coming and how it's packaged. You have a GS1 128 labels or UCC 128 labels. Those are needed for carton level tracking and acceptance at most retail DCs. You'll also find that some clients have those requirements for direct to customer. It all depends. You got to look at those routing guides. Those routing guides are going to tell you and it's going to define how labels are, where they should be placed, where they should be on a carton, where they should be on a pallet, all of those things. You have the 940, 944, which is dealing with inventory. So that's inventory movements. So that's literally when shipments are coming into the warehouse to get the warehouse to have the goods on the shelf to fulfill the deliveries that are being requested by the different retailers. So again, it's inventory movements is what that's dealing with, and your inventory adjustments. So those documents are common documents. And again, they can be either in an X12 format, they can be in JSON, they can be in XML, they can be in all kinds of different flavors of a structured file. Just understand those are the typical documents that you're going to see a lot of your 3PLs dealing in. Best practices for managing EDI in a 3PL environment, use standardized EDI templates. Set up documents that those are reusable maps with the common retailers, Walmart, Costco, Amazon, and the list goes on. Because a lot of these retailers are common entities that you're going to run across. A lot of 3PLs, there's a lot of product moving. Look at who are the major ones with the most stores and the most customers. And those should be the ones that you focus on first. Even if you're not doing them. Eventually, hopefully through the growth of your company, you will be doing them. So look at what those guidelines look like. Look what those routing guides look like so that you're not caught off guard. You want to automate the partner specific rules. What's the ship to versus store number? What's the mark for? Do they need a DC number? All of those things. Is this a cross dock? Understanding the terminology that's going on in your space will also help you. You want to automate as much as possible the GS128 label creations. Make it a dynamic label generation based on the ASN data. Integrate with label printers on the warehouse floor. You don't typically want somebody to print a label at a customer's and then ship it to you through the mail. Like that used to happen years ago, which was crazy. Now that needs to happen at the 3PL. Your warehouse and the amount of goods that you're pushing and the products that you're pushing out the door, you need those physical labels being handled at your physical location. So you look to connect your EDI, connect EDI to your WMS. Don't make your team the rekey the same information. You got to integrate that data flow. A lot of people are going to be using cloud-based softwares to sync, EDI, WMS, and the ERP systems. You're looking to automate the status updates from the warehouse back to the ERP. So think of those things, monitor in real time, set up dashboards for people to look at successful ASNs and failure rates and all of those things. Get the alerts set up for missing ASNs, invalid labels, delayed 945s. Think of all of that. Understand the aspect of the moving data that you have going on, the business process if you're a 3PL. You want to document, you want to train, you want to create SOPs for your trading, per the trading partners. You want to train the warehouse teams on ASN compliance, label placements, inventory scanning. What's in the 940? Train people on all of those things to be a successful 3PL and understanding it from that aspect. So as I always try to do, if you have questions, we're hammering away on the YouTube channel, LinkedIn, our Discord server. You'll find me on Reddit, throwing comments, asking, telling people, hey, listen, just set up a meeting and we'll talk these things through. Again, I don't know everything. I try to know as much as I can about aspects of EDI, API, so that I can help more and more companies. So hop in there, throw a comment, throw a like, just follow us, thumbs up, whatever the platform is that you're on. If we're there, check us out, and again, don't hesitate to ask questions. There are no bad questions. So I hope you have a great rest of your week. Like I said, it is nice, sunny here. It's Wednesday, it's Pennsylvania, and crazy part is we've had so much rain. But anyways, I hope you're doing well. Stay moving forward when the EDI comes about. So Jim Gonzalez, EDI Support LLC, thank you for checking out this video. And again, look forward to talking to you hopefully in the future. Take care.